Hey everyone, today I'm coming back to YouTube with another rock artist biography video, this time on the group Culture Abuse. I've had a bit of extra time lately. My job closed due to the pandemic, so in between playing a shit ton of Animal Crossing, I've been trying to actively write and play music and generally make more stuff, and I had a lot of fun doing my research on Arctic monkeys and figured I'd try to follow a similar formula and make another video like that. So, like I said, in this video I'll be discussing Culture Abuse, who are a 5-piece American punk rock band from San Francisco, California, formed by lead vocalist and songwriter David Kelling, lead guitarists Nick Bruder and John McCarthy, aka Junebug, bassist Shane Plitt, and drummer Ross Traver. For the purpose of this video, I'll be mainly focusing on David Kelling. Kelling was born an only child in Murphys, California, an unincorporated village in the foothills of Sierra Nevada mountains, with a population of a little over 2,200 people. His mother was a stay-at-home mom, and his father a union carpenter/gunsmith. Kelling has struggled with cerebral palsy from birth, describing his mother's complications during pregnancy. She went into their small-town doctor's office expressing concern that her baby hadn't moved or kicked in a while and just knew that something was wrong. They sent her home that day, telling her to come back if anything happened. Apparently the doctor went right after that to go play golf, and the very next day she came back, insisting that she get a scan, and after finding that the umbilical cord had wrapped around Kelling's neck 6 times over, she was immediately flown out for an emergency C-section. His father thought he'd been born dead, seeing him come out gray and an arm flop down. Growing up, Kelling was indifferent towards schooling, and since the way of life in Murphys was much slower to that of a metropolitan, his father would encourage him to follow in his footsteps and pick up a similar trade to his own. Knowing the limitations of his disability, Kelling expressed his aversion to this and knew that wasn't really what he wanted to do anyways. This is where his interest in music would soon gain momentum. Growing up, Kelling primarily listened to the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, and Motown records, and inspired by their presence, knew from a young age that he wanted to be in a band. In his teenage years, Kelling was surrounded by a small community of talented musicians and skaters who would set a precedent and cultivate an environment and sort of a culture for others to constantly be creating and improving their craft. Even before Kelling had a CD player, Chelsea Wolfe's Ben Kism, who was somewhat of a mentor, introduced him to new music via homemade cassette tapes featuring artists like At the Drive-In and Mercy Devils, and would often ask for his parents' blessing to attend concerts and band practices. A cashier at a local skate shop would give Kelling a Punkorama CD to further expand his horizons. Since there wasn't much else to do aside from going to the arcade, seeing movies at a tiny one-screen theater, and shoot guns in Murphys, music was always a cherished pastime to keep him and his friends out of trouble. His first band in high school, which was called Factory Seconds, was an outlet for Kelling to experiment and write a multitude of songs to just try anything. They would play all the time locally at parties and bar shows. Years later, Culture Abuse would actually come about following a tour with San Francisco's own Dead to Me, a punk band in which David Kelling helped manage on tour at the time, and from what I could gather, Ian Anderson, the drummer of Dead to Me, was aware of Kelling's kind of experience in composition, and the two of them discussed the potential in forming a band. With their respective backgrounds in hardcore and power pop, they integrated that sound with a hodgepodge of other friends/musicians until finding something that clicked. Culture Abuse plays a lot with distortion and throwing keys or string instruments that give an upbeat, melodic pop feel. And following their lighthearted and fuzzy instrumentals, their subject matter often illuminates raw emotions such as love, loss, anger, guilt, empathy, and jealousy, while also touching on subjects like mental and physical health, party culture, family, and the fast-paced nature of life. The catalyst for Culture Abuse's sound are notably bands from the West Coast punk scene, as well as Kelling's own inspirations like the Beatles, the Specials, and the Clash, and the result is an in-your-face yet cohesive and authentic experience, and according to audiences, beachy and sunny enough to clearly identify their roots in the Bay Area. Daydreams of Nothing, originally released on cassette in September of 2013, was a self-released EP recorded at New Tone Studios by Scott Goodrich, and later endorsed by 6131 Records. Bandcamp supporter Ben describes this record as raw, almost gothic yet still punk, combined with catchy, grunge-sounding vocals. They go on to release their second EP, Spray Paint the Dog, in 2015. On April 8th, 2016, Culture Abuse unveils their 10-track debut album, Peach, Under Pressure, preceding a tour with The Story So Far. 6131 Records wanted the album out by the time they went on tour, which left them 3 months to find a drummer, write, record, mix, and master the entire album. David Kelling said that in writing for Peach, he wanted to step away from putting out vague feelings and emotions. And at the time, him and his bandmates were going through various hardships. The 5 of them were priced out of their current home and were forced to move into the cramped 15 by 15 practice space that they had in San Francisco, and had problems with substances, both using and selling, to get by within the constraints of the city. They were all coping with the devastating loss of 2 friends, Sammy Winston and Tim Butcher. This tumultuous period would result in the eclectic album we all know as Peach. It is certainly my personal favorite and was my initial introduction to Culture Abuse. A couple of notable tracks are Turn It Off and Peace on Earth, and would recommend giving them a listen to. Following their tour with The Story So Far in April of 2016, things took off pretty quickly, and they would continue jumping around for the next 2 years to perform live with Touche Amore, Tiny Moving Parts, Nothing, The Bronx, and Turnstile, as well as other bands. This included an opening spot for Green Day in London, and festivals like Riot Fest and Reading the Leads. As Peach caught on with more and more people, the band found themselves touring the world so fast that they had trouble maintaining a steady lineup. Some nights they'd be scrambling to find a fill-in drummer, or others they'd have 3 guitarists. And in 2018, Culture Abuse signed to Epitaph Records and released their second full-length album, titled Baydream, produced and engineered by Carlos de la Garza, known for his work with Paramore, Tegan and Sara, Young the Giant, and Jim Eat World, to name a few. Baydream features another 10 tracks, which received much critical acclaim, with praise from NPR, Stereogum, and Noisy, as well as winning the favorite indie pop and indie rock albums award of 2018 by AllMusic. There are a lot of differences between it and its predecessor Peach. For one, instead of the rushed writing and producing process, they took their time coming up with Baydream, with the use of resources afforded to them by their new label, and this allowed for something much more refined in comparison, which Kelling agonized over during the process, noting that he considered scrapping the entire thing right before it went to press, wondering if it was too much too soon. Another notable difference between Peach and Baydream is its overtly positive tone and messages. Kelling notes that overall, Baydream is a love letter to his mother, who suffers with pulmonary hypertension, and wanted her to know that he loves her and he's sorry he can't always be around because of his commitments to Culture Abuse. My favorite tracks on this album are Call Me and Rats in the Waltz. Culture views have generally high energy and boisterous performances, but Kelling's experience as a frontman with cerebral palsy, a condition that reduces muscle strength and motor skills, presents some unique challenges and experiences. Quote, "Sometimes when I've walked out on stage, people have said that I seem drunk. They think I'm fucked up no matter what, so I'll just act like I'm partying to make people more comfortable." Goes on to say that music venues are more often than not inaccessible to folks with disabilities. Quote, "5 flights of stairs to get to a venue. How does someone in a wheelchair get up them? And who is talking about that?" he asks. "It never stopped me going to gigs when I was younger, but sometimes I'd trip and fall, feel like I didn't want to be there anymore." In the same vein, David Kelling says he's happy to be an ambassador for disabled communities and wants to keep the conversation of venue accessibility an open and ongoing one. Reflecting on what I've learned, I think I was surprised in a lot of different areas. Living in a small town of less than 20,000 people or so for a majority of my life, I could very much resonate with Kelling's experiences of having a tight-knit community of musicians around to support and build up their local scene from the ground up, and I respect that culture abuse doesn't adhere to a strict genre or a label. They tear down all expectations of what they should and will sound like, and allow their audience to fill in the gaps and just enjoy the music. I think that it shines a light on a much larger discussion of how constricting labels can be. Lastly, keeping the conversation of accessibility open, I want to take a moment to plug halfaccess.org, a nonprofit organization out of Portland, Oregon, dedicated to making music venues more accessible. You can use their search function to find a venue in their database and find information on parking, seating, bathrooms, light/strobe warnings, and whether or not a venue has stairs or an open entryway. Logging venues is just as easy, and I recommend that if your local scene has a hot spot for shows that isn't listed, to take a minute and do so. It's important for those of us who are able-bodied to support one another, to advocate, and to make space for anyone who just wants to go out and have a good time and see a show. With that said, let me know your thoughts and your feelings on any of the points I've made in this video today, and if you've watched till the end, thank you. Hope to see you again soon. Bye.